you'll recall, here we are, that from our January 25th report, we talked about changing the transient occupancy tax definition to include short-term vacation rentals, and that's rentals that are 30 days or less. And we suggested at the time revisiting the definition of short-term, if possible, to discuss whether there was an opportunity to cover racetrack rentals. We've all learned since then that that's not possible, that 30 days or less is law in the state of California. And we suggested implementing a process to collect taxes on short-term rentals through real estate agents and individual homeowners by instituting a permit or a license for a nominal fee. And the benefit of having a permit or license in order to do this is it would allow for improved oversight and control of this area. So this is a slide from January. I thought it worth revisiting this slightly. We told you back then, Karen Lair and Marie Simon were the ones who reported to you, that Del Mar narrowly defines the TOT tax to apply to hotel rooms and timeshares and not to single-family residences and duplexes. Del Mar does not expressly allow short-term rentals in the current zoning district. So in fact, short-term rentals of private homes that are less than 30 days are actually outside of the zoning code. So a technical assessment, which the Finance Committee is not qualified to do, but we can make an opinion on it, is that this would be in violation of zoning. It seems to us to be that way. So Del Mar charges TOT at a rate of 11.5% on hotel rooms, but not on short-term vacation rentals. Now, we did some research, and I'll briefly discuss that in the next slide, that there are 75 to 125 short-term rental units in Del Mar, and that's looking at the different sites that are the most popular and obvious for renting, so there may well be more that we haven't uncovered. Conservative estimates put the lost revenue at $175,000 per year, and that's assuming 75 units rented for 9 weeks per year at $2,500 per week. And those are modest, except for maybe the 9 weeks per year. That might be a reasonable assumption. Importantly, all the surrounding cities, from Oceanside to Carlsbad to Encinitas, Solana Beach, San Diego, and Imperial Beach, all have TOT on short-term rentals. They all have ordinances that regulate short-term rentals and the mechanisms for collecting TOT. And TOT is generally a separate fee collected along with the rental fee. It's collected by the rental agency or the owner, depending on who executes the rental, and paid by the renter. And that's an important point. So our recommendation in January was to change the transient occupancy tax code to include short-term vacation rentals and to implement research. So Adam Birnbaum, planning manager, did an initial research effort to come up with what I just told you on the previous slide, and we reviewed that, and then we contacted additional coastal cities beyond what Adam did originally. We contacted additional real estate agents, and Karen and DeMarie did a thorough survey of Del Mar rentals posted on websites over the prior year. So that was the basis of our information. And the conclusions we drew, this is another slide that we presented to you in January, was that nobody likes new taxes or fees, but at the same time, everybody understands the need for additional revenue for the city in order to address some of the increasing strain over recent years that short-term visitors have been placing on local services. And that includes lifeguard services, beach cleanup services, trash collection services, parks, making things available for everybody who comes to Del Mar to enjoy it. The TOT on short-term rentals has not been an issue in surrounding cities. That was the result of both Adam's research and our research. There is a cost to implement the program, but that would be covered through the revenue, but primarily through the permits. And most cities do not feel they're doing the best job they can of collecting from individual owners, but they're trying, and we can adopt some of the practices that our neighbors are using, that all of our neighboring cities are using. And there does not seem to have been any negative repercussions from the application of TOT to short-term vacation rentals in the surrounding cities. So here's the Finance Committee response to some of the opposition points that have come up. So here's one opposition point. Short-term TOT creates a tax anomaly, and a 30-day cutoff for the definition of short-term is arbitrary. And our response to that is that from Solana Beach to Carlsbad, San Diego, Imperial Beach, short-term rental TOT is in place and it works. We're a little hole on the map when you think about who has TOT. And 30 days or less is California law. It's not an arbitrary amount of time. A point has been, well, Del Mar is desperate for revenue, and that's why we're doing the TOT on short-term rentals. And in fact, the Finance Committee would defend ourselves there and say, well, Proposition J, as worded, reflects Finance Committee careful planning, and it aligns us with sister cities. Another objection has been the property taxes pay for the services that we've been talking about, and renters simply displace the owners for the time that they're here. And what we found on the Finance Committee in talking with our sister cities is that, in fact, the transient occupants stress the city and beach services beyond what the owners in place do. That turnover on a weekly basis with packed houses and people sleeping on the floor changes the dynamic of how the beach is being used and the amount of trash that's being generated. And that's beyond the long-term resident. Another opposition point is that our estimate of $175,000 a year in revenue is the wildest of guesses. That was published in the Union Tribune recently. And in fact, as I've described to you, that $175,000 a year figure is a conservative estimate based on research. And it's research that's been done both by the city planning manager and by our committee. And it was based on advertised rentals and the collection experiences of neighboring cities. Another objection is that Del Mar's hotel TOT receipts have been soft recently, and we asked the question, well, are Del Mar hotel trends different from neighboring cities? And the answer to that is no. So that while TOT receipts may be soft, it has nothing to do with short-term rentals and whether or not we'll be imposing that. So our bottom line is that the TOT on short-term rentals will equalize the tax on tourists. It will help pay for tourist infrastructure, as has been noted by various council members and people thinking about this. Maintaining and protecting our 2 Mile Beach costs more than $1 million annually. And right now, the Del Mar citizens pay this cost, so do hotel and motel guests through hotel and motel TOT, and it equalizes this to ask for additional taxing through Prop J. And as I said earlier, the definition of short term is 30 days or less is according to the California law in the tax code, or California Revenue and Tax Code, Section 7280 is what specifies that. There's a report that Adam Birnbaum from the city did, and that's available at delmar.ca.us. It was item 9 on February 8th, report to the City Council. So our recommendation, reprised, is that those who come to Del Mar as visitors to the community should share in the city's costs to maintain and provide services at the beaches, parks, and other public spaces. And instituting a short-term rental TOT equalizes the burden, and it works in Del Mar's neighboring cities. So the Finance Committee remains firm in its unanimous recommendation that a TOT on short-term rentals is the right thing for Del Mar citizens to decide to do. All right, that's it. So I'll turn to asking for questions and comments and feedback, not just on the TOT, but on where you, the City Council, would like to see us putting our efforts over the next 6 months.
Thank you very much, Terry.